Chapter 840. If it's not someone from the local area, then it can only be the He or Li family. Song Yanqing's tone was cold. The last time I came abroad alone, they sent people to follow me, Xiao Jin asked. Li lost so much, but they still followed you? Song Yanqing curled his lips. Maybe they already know about what happened to Ferdinand. It's not strange that they suspect me now. They still haven't caught the culprit in Joanna's case. Of course they won't be satisfied. They had been monitoring each other with He or Li, but compared to before, He or Li's style of doing things was much more low-key. They lost a group of people, and Milo was still missing. Of course, they didn't dare to act rashly. However, they were especially concerned about Song Yanqing coming abroad. Xiao Jin nodded. The two of them were only paying attention to He or Li's surveillance. They were here to look for other clues. Wanyan Yinhu had to have a reason for appearing here. If it wasn't to hide, then it was to meet someone. Song Yanqing still had to do his own things in the hotel. When night fell, he said that he had booked a famous local restaurant and brought Xiao Jin to eat dinner. The two of them were holding hands. They weren't accompanied by anyone and looked like a normal couple. However, Xiao Jin still felt that there were a few sneaky people behind them. These people weren't formation masters. They were just ordinary people. However, compared to ordinary people, they had more lethality. They had guns. Guns weren't banned in other countries, and this country was one of them. It was chaotic here, but if they returned to the hotel early, they would be fine. However, a few big white men followed Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. It was obvious that they had their eyes on something else. When the two of them came, they were wearing expensive clothes and didn't have anyone accompanying them. They looked like a weak Chinese couple, so they had some ideas that they shouldn't have. While they were eating in the restaurant, Song Yanqing was holding a knife and fork through the glass window. He looked out of the window elegantly, with a bewitching smile on his lips. What a pity! I wanted to bring you around, but with them here, it seems that tonight's plan is going to be ruined. The men, who had been near them, pretended to be idling. If it weren't for Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing's sharp senses, most people wouldn't have noticed that they were being watched. In the eyes of other countries, the Huaxiao people were rich and generous. Every year when they were traveling abroad, no matter which country they were in, there would be many accidents. Xiao Jin looked at the group of people outside and smiled. This is the first time I've encountered something like this. What is this? The legendary kidnapping Song Yanqing laughed and said, Only you think it's fun. Xiao Jin said, Those array masters are also guarding nearby. If things get chaotic later, will they take advantage of the chaos to attack? Song Yanqing was deep in thought. I'm not sure, but there's a high chance that it will happen. It would be best if they could take advantage of the chaos to get rid of the two of them. When it was about time, Song Yanqing put down his knife and fork. Are you full? Let's go back to the hotel. Xiao Jin nodded and got up to leave with Song Yanqing. When they walked out of the hotel, the few white men who were wandering around exchanged glances with each other and began to surround them, following behind them. At the same time, on the street, two cars began to move. Chapter 841. They quietly followed behind Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin. There were quite a lot of people on this street. They could even see quite a number of tourists from Huaxia. However, at this moment, the two cars behind them suddenly sped up and rushed toward Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. The people behind them also rushed up. It seemed that they were planning to kidnap the two of them. Since they dared to do such a thing here, they must have some confidence and something to rely on. Ordinary people would definitely not be able to react in time. However, at this moment, it was as if there was a sudden power outage on the entire street. The street lamps were all switched off, and the surrounding buildings also started to lose their light. The few robbers who were about to rush up felt that everything before them turned black. When a person's vision was suddenly stimulated, they would temporarily lose their vision. Countless panicked cries rang out in the surroundings. In this chaotic moment, Xiao Jin sensed that someone was indeed using a formation. They were charging toward her and Song Yanqing. She clicked her tongue, and red dots flashed in her eyes. In an instant, the entire world was locked down by a butterfly. The cars that were approaching Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing were pushed away by a huge force. At this moment, Xiao Jin suddenly grabbed Song Yanqing's wrist and said in a low voice, "There's something wrong with someone." There was an even more powerful force that was charging toward the two of them. This formation was not formed in a short period of time. It seemed to have been formed by the combined efforts of many people. It transformed into a huge demon, rolling and roaring as it charged toward Xiao Jin. No one else could see such a scene. The huge red butterfly in midair flapped its wings and let out a rare sharp cry. It was as if it could directly shake one's heart. It turned around, and the red line in the sky descended. It pierced through a thick fog and accurately landed in a small white house in the distance. Song Yanqing also said in a low voice, "I saw it." He grabbed Xiao Jin's hand and remained silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "There are 3 formation masters. Wanyan Yunhu is also among them." Xiao Jin laughed. "It's an unexpected gain." In the blink of an eye, the 2 figures disappeared from this world. When all the lights were restored, the panicked crowd looked around in astonishment. 2 white cars had been pushed to the middle of the road, and a group of equally confused robbers looked left and right, but they couldn't find Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. Not far away, a fat Caucasian foreigner who was eating potato chips stared at them. She didn't even know that her chips had fallen to the ground. All the lights suddenly went out, but it didn't mean that everyone couldn't see. He just saw Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing disappear on the spot. They disappeared on the spot. Ah! It took a minute for the fat white man to realize what he had seen. He covered his head and screamed, "My God! My Jesus! What did I see? What did I see? Someone just disappeared. My God, did you see that?" At this moment, in a small white house in the distance, there were 3 people sitting on the sofa with their eyes closed. They didn't see any movement for a long time. When they opened their eyes, they saw a young lady's long hair drooping down in front of them. A pair of calm eyes were looking at them. The exquisite and seductive woman shivered and almost screamed out loud. She had always been the one scaring others. Today, she was so frightened that she almost screamed out loud. Wanyan Yunhu, who soon realized that she had embarrassed herself, suddenly reacted and opened her eyes wide. Chapter 842. It was naturally Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing in front of her. The 2 of them had not expected that Wanyan Yunhu would make a move the moment she hid here. Wanyan Yunhu had not used the formation during the day. This meant that she had received news that Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing would arrive here at night. Looking at Wanyan Yunhu's pale face, Xiao Jin smiled and looked up. "What are you afraid of? You're a formation master. Why are you so scared?" Wanyan Yunhu's lips trembled. "Who wouldn't be scared when you appeared like a ghost?" Song Yanqing stood at the side and sized up this simple house. It was a very low-profile house. It was a place where ordinary residents lived. There were 2 foreign women beside Wanyan Yunhu. However, when they saw Xiao Jin, they were much more straightforward. They immediately screamed to express their fear. They were formation masters, but they had never seen someone like Xiao Jin. However, Song Yanqing glanced at them when they screamed. The faint smile on his lips seemed to have a great killing power. It blocked their throats, causing them to be unable to make a single sound. Instead, they felt a suffocating pain. The 2 of them covered their throats out of reflex. Wanyan Yunhu looked at Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing and blinked. There seemed to be a drop of sweat on her forehead, and she found it difficult to speak. How did you find me?" That person had promised that no one would discover this place. She knew about Xiao Jin in the past, but she had never met Xiao Jin face to face. However, she recognized Xiao Jin and knew that this girl was very mysterious. According to the news from China, Shang Yishan, who they had created, had been dealt with by her. Back then, even Wanyan Yunhu had admitted that she had no way to deal with her. She was afraid that the matter would be exposed and had run away. However, Xiao Jin had dealt with Shang Yishan. Now that she saw Xiao Jin face to face, Wanyan Yunhu's pupils contracted. "Is it strange how I found it?" Xiao Jin said softly. "Someone set up a powerful formation here to block my detection. As long as you don't make a move, I won't discover you." "So, why did you make a move?" "Someone had set up a powerful restriction here." Xiao Jin could already feel a familiar aura from this restriction. She was very sure that her sworn enemy had appeared here before. After so many years, there were still traces left behind. Wanyan Yunhu's lips trembled. Why did she do it? He was the one who asked for it. She blinked hard and lowered her eyes weakly after a while. If you want to do it, then do it. I was the one who planned Shang Yishan's incident. I knew I wouldn't be able to live after doing such a wrong thing. She quickly accepted her fate in front of Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin laughed. Song Yanqing sized up Wanyan Yunhu from the side. You admitted it so quickly. It seems that you can't afford to offend the person behind this. We know that you can't do what you want to do with Shang Yishan alone. How long have you been working with this person? Wanyan Yunhu said, I don't know what you're talking about. Song Yanqing said, if you didn't know, would you have run away and come overseas to find this person? Wanyan Yunhu looked at Song Yanqing and sneered. We didn't expect that there would be such a powerful person like you hiding in the capital. Song Yanqing smiled. There are many things that you didn't expect. Chapter 843. That's how it is. Xiao Jin lowered her body slightly and looked at Wanyan Yunhu. You learned the method of using demonic spiritual seeds to catalyze the transformation of demonic spiritual psyche masters from this person. He definitely has his reasons for doing this. It's probably not the first time you've used the spirit group as an experiment. What's the deal you've made with him? In fact, Xiao Jin knew that Wanyan Yunhu had no intention of speaking. Therefore, after she finished speaking, she quickly summoned the rule formation and forcefully pulled Wanyan Yunhu into the rules. She then summoned the memory reversal formation and prepared to search her memories. However, Wanyan Yunhu immediately let out a painful shriek. Waves of black flames rose from her body as if she was on fire. It was as if she was being burned. Her memories were in a mess. Xiao Jin pulled her hand back, lowered her gaze, and said, restrictions have been placed on her. However, she was certain that this person was working together with the spirit group. Indeed, they were sworn enemies. It was impossible for other formation masters to have such an ability. Xiao Jin did not find it strange that she was unable to search her memories. She guessed that Wanyan Yunhu had probably been instructed to do so. Song Yanqing gave it some thought. Do you need my help? He saw that Wanyan Yunhu's body had started to tremble intensely and convulse in pain. The two formation masters beside her were scared out of their wits. They did not know why such a problem had appeared on Wanyan Yunhu's body. Xiao Jin shook her head. He has placed a restriction. Wanyan Yunhu will definitely die. I can't find her memories, but I can confirm that this matter is related to him. As long as the clues were opened, she would have traces to follow. Xiao Jin gave it some thought. It's a pity that we don't have enough spiritual seeds now. If she had enough spiritual seeds, she would immediately be able to use the rules to forcefully find the other party and get rid of him. There's no hurry for this matter. It's a good thing that we have a clue. Song Yanqing looked at Wanyan Yunhu, who was trembling intensely. Should we get someone to send her back? Xiao Jin shook her head. It's too late. After saying this, she grabbed Song Yanqing and retreated. Wanyan Yunhu screamed once again, and black flames kept coming out from her body. In the end, there was still a burst of flames coming out from her body, instantly burning her body into ashes. It was absolutely terrifying. The two array masters at the side were so scared that they hugged each other and looked at Xiao Jin in horror. They were like ordinary array masters. They didn't know anything and didn't have enough experience. Xiao Jin stared at them and suddenly sneered. You did a pretty good job. Song Yanqing looked down at her. So are you sure this is the person you're looking for? Not only is he sure, he's also telling me something else. Song Yanqing frowned. Tell you what? His instincts told him that something bad was going to happen. Xiao Jin's tone was calm. He's telling me that his life is tied to many people's. Even if I find him, many people will die with him when he dies. Among them, there were many innocent people. Wanyan Yunhu and the two array masters were the warning that had been sent to her. Song Yanqing's gaze sank slightly. Don't array masters have to involve karma when they do such things? Xiao Jin smiled. That's right. He's probably leaving a way out for himself. His sworn enemy had also thought that there would be a day where he could only drag others in front of him to block Xiao Jin. But he definitely doesn't know that I've gotten my hands on the rules array point. The rules array point was a good thing. Chapter 844. How long do you need to find him using the rule array points? Xiao Jin said, many lives are involved in his body. He has been nurturing for a long time and has to be removed. The demonic spiritual seeds that need to be sacrificed are not enough. She was a powerful array master, but so was the other party. He also used karma to do things. Xiao Jin could ignore karma and kill him, but it did not mean that he could not think of other methods. Transferring one's karma to others was letting others die in one's place. Xiao Jin could not determine how many people he had planted karma on. Wan Yinhu was one, but she was definitely not the only one. Also, I told you about the Rakshasa realm. Xiao Jin looked at the pile of ashes left behind by Wan Yinhu's corpse and seemed to be deep in thought. If he chooses to cooperate with the Rakshasa realm, he might get more benefits. Could the Rakshasa realm have a motive? Song Yanqing squatted down as well. His deep eyes carefully sized up Wan Yinhu, who had been burned to ashes. The Rakshasa world doesn't have frequent activities. I don't think it's as simple as them wanting to create demon spiritualists. They might be plotting something else, but they are unable to do so for now. As he said this, he looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin nodded. That's the most important point. Maybe they are thinking of a way to break through the boundary between the two worlds, but it's too difficult. Song Yanqing was also thinking. When he was unconscious and sleeping, he felt that he was trapped in the Rakshasa realm. He could always feel something. Other than the pain of his soul being torn apart, they always said that he would return. But he was very sure that he was not from the Rakshasa realm. Xiao Jin was also sure that he was not. The demons of the Rakshasa realm could not cross over. Then why would they say that? Unless it was really as Xiao Jin guessed. He had a story that involved the Rakshasa realm. No matter what, I won't let them come over, no matter what the price is. When Xiao Jin said this, he seemed much calmer. Song Yanqing suddenly chuckled. I thought you wouldn't care about these things. With great power comes great responsibility. I just don't care about the affairs of ordinary people. She was bestowed with powerful abilities by karma. Although she was suppressed, she was also protected. There were some things that had to be shouldered. If it was really as she guessed, with her standing in this position, if there was a problem in the Rakshasa realm, then the only ones who could stop it would be her and Song Yanqing. However, she had to look on the bright side. She hadn't even recovered her memories yet. There were no obvious movements in the Rakshasa realm either. Song Yanqing nodded. There were still two array masters in the room who were watching them discuss in horror. They didn't understand Huaxiao language and didn't know what Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing were talking about. Wan Yinhu had died in front of them. Naturally, they thought that it was Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing who had done it. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing only knocked the two array masters unconscious. Then, they took photos and submitted them to Zhongli Painting. If these array masters were not from an official organization, then it would be more troublesome to find where they came from. When Zhongli Painting saw that they had managed to find traces of Wan Yinhu overseas, she was a little surprised. She checked the information on the two formation masters that Xiao Jin had given her, and she immediately got back the answer that she had expected. These two array masters are not from our official organization. I also asked the array master organizations overseas. They said that they don't have these two people. Chapter 845. In this world, not all spiritualists would join the spirit group. However, most of the people they found would be recorded or monitored. If there was no information, they would be fish that had escaped the net. This wasn't good news for them. Zhongli Painting asked Xiao Jin, "Where did you find Wan Yinhu? Where is she now? Can you escort her back?" Xiao Jin only told her that they had found Wan Yinhu, but he didn't tell her what her current situation was. Hearing this, Xiao Jin stared at the pile of ashes on the ground. "I'm afraid it'll be a little difficult." Zhongli Painting didn't understand. "Why? Did you also encounter a troublesome situation and can't do it?" Xiao Jin said, "I also can't turn a pile of ashes back into a person." Zhongli Painting was speechless. She was a little shocked. "She's dead? She died so easily?" Wan Yinhu, was one of the higher-ups who had led the matter of the demonized spiritual seed. She was now hated by the spiritualist organization. Now, whenever she was mentioned, they wanted her to come back and die. However, they didn't expect her to die overseas. And she died so easily. Killed by Xiao Jin? Xiao Jin obviously wouldn't take the blame for this. He didn't let Zhongli Painting ask and directly said, Wan Yin Yunhu is working with someone else. I don't know who this other person is for now. I will spread the news. She knew that they were sworn enemies, but she couldn't tell Zhongli Painting directly. This was because the spirit group couldn't interfere in their battle. However, they could help her investigate. Song Yanqing whispered in her ear, let them work with a foreign spiritualist organization. China might not be the only country with problems. There were so many people overseas, and there were countless demonized spiritualists. Would there be no problems with foreign organizations? Xiao Jin nodded and told him about it. Zhongli Painting sighed and said, that's what we guessed as well, but it's a little unrealistic. We can cooperate with them overseas, but it's impossible for them to share such top-secret information with us. They insist that there won't be any problems internally, but I've asked their relevant managers if they're collecting demonized soul seeds. They didn't deny it, but they didn't say it directly either. That already revealed the problem. Xiao Jin, if there's another Shang Yishan, it'll be up to fate whether or not I can make it in time. Zhongli Painting. She hung up and said to Song Yanqing, it's almost time for us to go back. Song Yanqing nodded. The two array masters were locked up here. Soon, someone would come to take them away. They returned to the hotel. The power outage had caused a lot of people to panic. Now there were police sirens and security guards everywhere. When Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing returned to the hotel, it was already midnight. The few array masters who realized that something was wrong ran away without a trace. However, when Xiao Jin set up the array, they had already been marked. If they ran away, it would depend on where they ran to. Back in the room, Song Yanqing left the master bedroom to her and slept in the second bedroom outside. Although Xiao Jin didn't think there was any difference, she didn't object to Song Yanqing's insistence. After taking a shower, she lay on the bed. Song Yanqing, who had thought that she would rest after washing up, opened the door and looked at her with a smile. At least the vacation I prepared can't be wasted. Shall I take you around the other countries in Eastern Europe these few days? Of course. Xiao Jin nodded and agreed. Chapter 846. She was curious about the world. She wanted to walk around and see the development of this era. The next morning, the hotel delivered food. Song Yanqing was already dressed. Xiao Jin just got up from the bed. It wasn't that she wasn't awake, but Song Yanqing woke up earlier than her. Seeing Xiao Jin get up, he chuckled. Good morning. Xiao Jin didn't know how to disguise herself. She just washed her face and brushed her teeth in the morning. She didn't bring any skincare products in her suitcase. She was nourished by the array every day, so she didn't need them. Xiao Fei didn't know that at home, so she always wore skincare masks. Every time she saw Xiao Jin, she would say with jealousy, why is there such a big gap between peoples? Ji Qiyue and Chai Yueli didn't have such good genes. Her hair was hanging down and looked a little messy, but it still had a black luster. When she sat down to eat breakfast, Song Yanqing walked over and picked up a few strands of her hair with his fingertips. Why don't you tie it up when you're eating? Will you find it inconvenient? Xiao Jin, it's okay. Song Yanqing paused, suddenly turned, and walked into his room. When he came out, he took out a black and gold hairband. He took the hairband and began to tie up Xiao Jin's long hair. They gave me this when I ordered clothes before. Now I know how to use it. He tied up Xiao Jin's long hair. He didn't need to comb it. After tying it up, he tied it into a beautiful bow. After her hair was tied up, it was refreshing. It looked more delicate. Xiao Jin didn't care how he tied her hair. After he was done, she asked, why do you know how to tie hair? Song Yanqing chuckled. Is it difficult? I've seen my sister tie hair before. Oh. Xiao Jin was not surprised. After eating a sandwich, she said, I'm full. Compared to when she was in China, she didn't eat much. Song Yanqing said, it's all these over here. The taste isn't to our liking. We can go to a better place. Last night, when he said that he was going to take Xiao Jin out to play, he had already made arrangements. Xiao Jin nodded, and the two of them walked out hand in hand. For the next few days, they were like a normal couple, playing in some small countries in Eastern Europe. After wandering around for a few days, they finally returned to their country. Everything was rather casual, and nothing that shouldn't have happened. Song Yanqing respected her very much, and would only kiss her cheek occasionally. When she returned to China, she even bought some gifts for Qiao Fei and the others. However, when he returned home, the atmosphere at home didn't seem very good. Qiao Fei was sitting at home, a little worried, so much so that she wasn't too surprised to see Qiao Jin back. Qiao Jin sensed that something was wrong, so she asked, "Fei Fei, what's wrong?" When she saw Qiao Jin, Qiao Fei forced a smile. "Jin," she was a little hesitant. "How are you and Lord Song doing?" "Pretty good." Qiao Jin was a little puzzled. "Why you look like that? Did something happen at home? Or did Chai Yuli come looking for trouble?" "No." Qiao Fei shook her head. It's just she hesitated for a moment, but still said, "We haven't been able to contact Qi Lian since yesterday. I don't know what's going on now. I'm a little worried." Chapter 847. You can't contact him? Qiao Jin blinked her eyes and sensed for a moment. "You should be fine." That was because she did not sense anything wrong with Muzilian. When she left, she did not sense any bad luck from Muzilian either. After being raised in the Mu family for so long, his luck was not something that ordinary people could compare to. "I don't know if he's fine. After all, I can't contact him. Mom is worried." Qiao Fei's expression did not look too good. "I called him yesterday afternoon and couldn't get through." "Didn't you go overseas?" He was bored and said that someone asked him to go to a remote place to play. "I don't know where exactly he went. The signal there is not good." Just as she said that, a call came in from the other side of the phone. Qiao Fei took a look and hurriedly picked it up. "Why couldn't I get through to you for the entire day? Where the hell have you been?" "I dropped my phone." There was a buzzing sound on the other side. It sounded like the signal was not too good. Muzilian's voice was very clear. "I went to his hometown in the countryside with my brother. Their place is very remote, and there is no signal. I dropped my phone and took someone else's phone. I can't even buy a new one here. I just wanted to call you." "Mom, don't worry. Do. As soon as she finished speaking, the other party hung up. Can't this child finish his words? Why did he hang up so quickly? Qiao Jin asked. "He and his brother? Who are they?" "They said that it was someone with the surname Zhong." Qiao Fei was a little confused as well. "I don't know who they are either. I just said that they went to the countryside and did not know when they would be back. Thankfully, they returned my call. I'm not so worried anymore." Qiao Jin smiled. "You don't have to worry. It's nothing serious." Qiao Fei was still worried. "I'm worried about you guys. If you guys went anywhere, you must call me every day. I'm very worried when I can't contact you guys." His family was used to letting their imaginations run wild. If Qiao Fei could not contact them, the best-case scenario would be that they dropped their phones. However, people would always think of the worst. What if they were kidnapped? How miserable would that be? Qiao Jin smiled and carried his suitcase upstairs. Then he took the things he bought and gave them to Qiao Fei. Qiao Fei was a little happier when he saw the gift he had bought for her. "You must have had a good time with Lord Song." Sigh. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Qiao Jin. Fei Fei's way of thinking was a little too much. When Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhiming returned that night, Qiao Fei told them about Muzilian. This morning, Mu Zhiming was trying to find a way to contact Muzilian through his connections. Now that he heard that it was because he had lost his phone, he was relieved. Musicha still said, "If you lose your phone, you should buy a new one as soon as possible." Qiao Fei muttered. He also said that the place was too remote to buy a cell phone. Seriously, is there still a place where you can't buy a cell phone? Isn't there a delivery service? Mu Xiangshan snorted coldly and said, "You have long hair and short eyes. Do you really think that we're in an advanced society now? There are still primitive societies overseas. What's so strange about our country not having convenient transportation? He's just running around all day with nothing to do." What if, when he came out and saw the shocked expression on Qiao Fei's face, Mu Xiangshan did not say anything? He couldn't curse his grandson for no reason, right? Chapter 848. Mu Zhenming, Dad, what if what? Mu Xiangshan. What if you don't know what it is? Mu Jinming. Musicha frowned and didn't say anything. Xiao Jin was already used to such situations and didn't say anything. After dinner, they went upstairs to rest. Heavy rain fell from the sky, and there were flashes of lightning and roars of thunder. In this rain, only an extremely tall and strange figure could be seen. Every step he took was inexplicably distorted. He held an axe and walked towards a few houses in the rain. Knock, knock, knock. Although it was still raining heavily, the knocking sound was extremely ear-piercing in the rain. The ear-piercing sound sank into people's hearts and made them shiver. The people hiding in the house didn't dare to make a sound and covered the mouth of the child in their arms tightly. Their faces were full of panic and fear. No one dared to respond to the sound outside. Gradually, only the sound of the rain could be heard. The knocking sound seemed to have stopped. The man in the house gradually let go of the child's mouth and whispered to his wife, "Did he leave?" His wife shook her head in panic and said in a trembling voice, I don't know." As soon as she said this, there was a sudden bang. The sound of the axe hitting the door sounded, and a deafening scream sounded in the house. Boom! The sound of thunder rang. When Yu woke up from the bed, he was drenched in sweat. Mom, Yu cried. Next to him, Yu also woke up and immediately hugged Yu. Mom is here. Mom is here. What happened to you? What happened? She was a little worried and quickly turned on the lights. On the big bed, only Yu's pale face could be seen. He climbed out of the bed and was hugged by Yu. She was a little heartbroken. Yu would have nightmares from time to time, and it made her very scared. Yu was a spirit master of speech who had been brought back by Xiao Jin. Song Yanqing had arranged for someone to take care of her, and everything was going according to plan. Yu hid in Yu's arms as though he was seeking a sense of security. After a long time, he lifted his head from Yu's arms and looked at Yu. He suddenly said, Mom, call Brother Yanqing. I want to see him. See him? Yu hesitated. When she arrived, she saw the young master of the Jilan family. He was the most handsome person she had ever seen in her life. He was like a god that did not exist in the mortal world. She knew that such a person was extremely difficult to meet. She didn't know if the other party would agree in the middle of the night. She hesitated for a moment before replying. Why do you want to see him? Yu's voice was very soft. I feel like I have something to tell him. Brother Guanqing said that if I want to talk to him, I can see him. Yu knew that Yu was different from others since she was young. She could only nod. Okay, Mom will call you. When Song Yanqing received the news and came over, Yu was sitting in the study drawing. In the middle of the night, if it was someone else, it would have been fine. But since it was Yu, he had to come. He held a paintbrush, but wasn't very familiar with drawing. When he came in, Yu was standing outside the door. When Yu saw Song Yanqing, he didn't say anything. He put down his paintbrush and held the drawing in front of him in front of Song Yanqing. When Song Yanqing saw Yu's drawing, the smile on his lips froze slightly, because the scene in Yu's drawing was exactly the same as the dream he had tonight. Chapter 849. A child's drawing skills were not very good. However, a simple drawing still revealed some flavor. The background color was filled with red crayon lines, and there were a few small blue houses beside it. The drawing was not very formal. Among the red lines, he used red crayons to draw a particularly large monster. The monster's body was twisted, and its face could not be seen clearly. It was holding an axe, and its body seemed to be taller than the house. Because the content of the drawing was so strange, he recognized it at a glance. It was exactly the same as the dream he had tonight. He was silent for a moment. You dreamed about it tonight? Yu nodded and said softly, I think I should tell you. Song Yanqing had never met other spiritualists. He did not know if Yu's perception was as strong as his. But if they had dreamed of the same scene, it was definitely not simple. This was because their dreams were often prophetic. This thing represented something. Song Yanqing touched his head and said softly, Then you will be leaving with me tonight. I will take you to see Sister Xiao Jin. Yu nodded. Okay. Song Yanqing smiled and turned to Yu's mother, Yu. I'm sorry, Miss Yu. I need to take you to see Xiao Jin. The thing he dreamed of tonight was strange. Yu did not understand this, but she knew that Song Yanqing would not harm them. She could only agree. Then you can take him. This time, you did not mention that he wanted to go with his mother. When he left, he waved obediently. Bye, Mom. Yu Chu waved back. Bye. She had some expectations in her heart. After a while, she could not help but say, Mr. Song, you and my son should be careful. She instinctively felt that Song Yanqing's intention to take you away was not simple. Song Yanqing only nodded. He could not let you encounter any danger. It was already 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when you woke Song Yanqing up. It was only 5 o'clock when they arrived at the Mu family's house. Xiao Jin was not awake at first, but she was woken up by a phone call. The person on the other side was very direct. Xiao Jin, we've run into trouble again. Are you coming? But this time, they're all busy, so I can only ask you and Ji Mingming to make a trip there. Xiao Jin was woken up from his sleep. His voice was faint. Ms. Zhongli, is the spirit group treating me as a reserve now? Zhongli painting, 10 million. It may also carry array points. It's just a possibility. If you want, of course we won't object. Xiao Jin. She was silent for 3 seconds. Tell me about it. Zhongli painting told Xiao Jin one thing. Xiao Jin and the others had been to Nanjiang City once, so they were not unfamiliar with it at all. But this time, they went to a small village under Nanjiang City. It was thousands of miles away from Nanjiang City. It was located in the mountains. The village was very closed. Because it was surrounded by mountains, transportation was very inconvenient. The people in the village almost lived an isolated life. Even the signal there was not very good. When the spirit group received a call for help, things were already too strange. There was a big problem in the closed village. Many people had died. The key was that the things inside had not been found out yet. The local spirit group sent people to investigate. None of them came back. They didn't even send out any information. Only a photo was sent out. Not being able to contact them in such a dangerous place almost meant death. Chapter 850. After the spiritual readers went there, they also began to disappear. Only then did they realize that something was wrong. This place was different from the place where Mo Jiang was buried last time. This time, they went to a closed village, a real remote area, and it was difficult to contact the outside world. Even entering the mountains, they had to walk through a very dangerous and high-risk road. After arriving at the local town, it would take 3 hours to get to the village by car. Going back and forth, it would take them a day to go back to the city. They did not dare to contact other spiritual readers. They thought of Xiao Jin, so they came to find Xiao Jin. Since Xiao Jin solved several difficult and miscellaneous problems for the spirit group, he had now officially become their external aid. If it was really a normal situation, there was no need to ask Xiao Jin for help. When Xiao Jin was on the phone, she heard the sound of a car horn outside the Mu family's house. It was not yet dawn outside. She seemed to have sensed something. She got up and looked outside. Outside the window, Song Yanqing was standing there, and there was a small figure beside him. Xiao Jin said, "Send me the information. I have something to do here." Song Yanqing would not come to her for no reason. She hung up the phone and walked downstairs. When she saw you, she raised her eyebrows slightly. "Why did you even bring him here? What's the big deal?" Song Yanqing looked at her and said softly, "I had the same dream as him this time, and the same scene appeared in the dream." "Is that so?" Xiao Jin looked at you and said slowly, "What did you dream of?" You also showed the painting she brought to Xiao Jin. When Xiao Jin saw the distorted black shadow on it, his eyes narrowed. This was obviously not a human being. It could only be a thing made by a formation master. At this moment, her phone beeped. Zhongli painting had sent her the only problematic photo. It was a dark village. From the photo, it looked like it was taken during the day. Even though it was a bright day, the village in the photo was abnormally depressing. The few houses that existed were all dark, as if they were covered with a layer of black canvas. Against the towering mountains in the distance, it was full of oppressive and dark tones. The house was relatively short, and it seemed like the owner of the photo had taken it from a high place. This photo happened to fall into Song Yanqing's eyes. He hesitated for a moment. "This is it." Xiao Jin suddenly turned around. "Are you sure?" You also took a look and quickly nodded. "It's here, Sister Xiao Jin. I dream of this place. Compared to his painting, the place where the demons appeared did indeed look like these few houses. It was just that the painting was too blurry. After all, they had dreamed of it. When Song Yanqing said it was here, she knew that they had to go to this place. She paused. Wait a moment. I'll go up and change my clothes. You can book the tickets. This place is Nanjiang. Nanjiang? Song Yanqing closed his eyes. The place where you brought Mo Jiang back last time? Xiao Jin nodded. But this time, it's very far away. Song Yanqing reacted. You also received the news? Coincidentally, the spirit group also came to find me. They said that many people have gone missing in this place. They still don't know the reason. You also had a related dream. I'm afraid this place is very dangerous. Song Yanqing also said solemnly. Is it another formation point similar to the rules? Xiao Jin shook his head. No, the remaining formation points are not so easy to obtain. Even you dreamed of it. I'm leaning towards something else. Chapter 851. She went upstairs to change her clothes and gave Zhong Li Peining a call. I've accepted the mission, but I want someone else. I want Mo Jiang to go instead of Ji Mingming. Zhong Li Peining paused for a moment. Mo Jiang just joined the Ling group. How do you know? Xiao Jin laughed. Do you think I don't know? Zhong Li Peining. She thought of many things but did not dare to say a word. She could only gulp and say, Okay, I'll ask her. Mo Jiang had just joined and was a troublemaker, so she did not dare to look for her for anything. She still had to ask if she agreed. Mo Jiang was still filming and was not very happy to receive this news early in the morning. However, when she heard that it was Xiao Jin's request, she agreed after a moment of silence. Since she agreed, things were much easier to handle. Song Yanqing's actions were also very fast. He quickly arranged plane tickets to Nanjiang for a few people. Xiao Jin changed her clothes and came downstairs with her suitcase. She happened to see Xiao Fei, who had just woken up. Xiao Fei was stunned when she saw Xiao Jin carrying her suitcase. Where are you going? You just came back yesterday. There was an emergency, and I had to go out. Song Yanqing is still waiting for me outside. Xiao Fei said sternly. Where are you going? Isn't it too much for the two of you to go on dates every day? Xiao Jin said naturally. It's not a date. I'm going to save the world. Xiao Fei. She actually treated him like a fool. This was even more ridiculous than going to a disco. She was so angry. At this moment, Mu Xiangshan woke up and came downstairs for breakfast. When he saw that Xiao Jin was about to leave, he immediately laughed and said, Just let her go. If she wants to save the world, can you stop her? If you're late and can't save the world, it'll be your fault. Xiao Fei. Dad, are you suffering from dementia? Xiao Fei didn't dare to say it out loud. Xiao Jin smiled faintly and left with his suitcase. When she came out, Song Yanqing was waiting for her outside. Seeing her carrying a suitcase, he smiled and said, You are fully prepared. I think it might take a few days. She glanced at you and said softly, Since you was dreaming about it, she might want to go with us. You nodded. She knew what Xiao Jin meant. She said softly, Can I call my mother? Song Yanqing, of course. I will explain it to your mother. Xiao Jin told her that Mo Jiang was also going. She didn't know why Xiao Jin would bring Mo Jiang along. Song Yanqing didn't ask. She first took you with her to call her mother. Yu Chu expressed her understanding, but she still hoped that Song Yanqing and the others would protect you. Xiao Jin received a message from Mo Jiang. There was only one. Mo Jiang. Do you know that I still have to film? Xiao Jin replied. It's more convenient to bring you along than the spirit team. Nanjiang is where I brought you back. It might be your nest. Mo Jiang. That's such a terrible thing to say. What nest? Xiao Jin. The spirit team gave me 10 million. How about this? I will ask them to give you another 10 million. Mo Jiang. Where are you now? Xiao Jin smiled. The airport. I have arranged a ticket for you. Come over. Mo Jiang happily agreed. She was only paid a few $100,000 for this movie. The main reason was that she wasn't famous at all. This was the generous price that the director gave her. Chapter 852. Mo Jiang felt that it was worth 10 million yuan to follow the big boss. The sports car she had her eyes on cost 3 million yuan. She had been thinking about it for a long time, and now she finally had the money to buy it. She happily applied for leave from the crew. Although she was the second female lead and her scenes could be pushed back, suddenly applying for leave would still disrupt some of the plans. After hearing this, the director was dumbfounded, but he couldn't stand the beauty's temper. In the end, he still sucked up to her. Her scenes could be pushed back. How could it be more important than the beauty's matter? When she arrived at the airport and saw Xiao Jin, she realized that there was more than one person besides Xiao Jin. It was her first time seeing Song Yanqing and Yu. Song Yanqing had seen her in the coffin, but she had never seen Song Yanqing before. She looked at Song Yanqing, then at Yu, and finally at Xiao Jin. She said, "You never told me that you were married and had a child." "Xiao Jin, this is not my child." Song Yanqing laughed. Even Mo Jiang was a little dazed by his charming face. His voice was gentle, but there was a hint of politeness and alienation. "I'm Xiao Jin's boyfriend. This kid is my younger brother." Song Yanqing didn't say anything about their identities as spiritualists. Mo Jiang was a little enlightened. "Oh, look at this person." He was quite compatible with Xiao Jin. Mo Jiang was still wondering what kind of man was worthy of the big boss. Now that he saw it, it wasn't strange. Some people were really born to be a perfect match. She felt that way when she saw Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. It was a pity that the big boss couldn't understand the true meaning of love like her. To raise a few more spare tires. After boarding the plane, Yu was still a little nervous. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing were the kind of people who were not very clingy. Yu and Mo Jiang sat together. She smiled and seemed to be very interested in Yu. She poked Yu's cheek and asked, "Little brother, how old are you this year?" To be brought along by Xiao Jin, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Mo Jiang couldn't tell that Yu was a spiritualist, but he wasn't stupid. He knew that Yu had her uses. Being stared at by Mo Jiang, Yu shrunk back a little. "Sister, I'm 8 years old." 8 years old. Mo Jiang clicked his tongue and scratched Yu's face with his bright red nails. So small. Recently, because she needed to make bright red pills for acting, she looked a little scary. However, he was careful not to hurt Yu's tender cheeks. When the stewardess in the first-class cabin saw the 3 good-looking guests, her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She was much more diligent in running around. Both men and women were good-looking. It was simply the happiest trip they had ever taken. It didn't take long to reach Nanjiang. They arrived at noon. However, they had to transfer to that place. The following time was more difficult. Because there were no outsiders, Xiao Jin directly told them about the message he received from Zhongli Panying. This village was called Yuqi Village. The last census of the village's population was 3 years ago. At that time, there were more than 100 people. Most of them were old people and children. The young people in the village all came out. However, since a month ago, there had been missing people in the village. However, the village was too far away and was in a closed state. At first, no one noticed. Later, the local police station in the town received a call. Chapter 853. However, this was just an ordinary call to the police, and nothing was revealed on the phone. Because the number that made the call was not in service, they finally found out that it was from Yuqi Village. The police were sent to investigate, but after the 2 police officers went there, they disappeared. There was no news at all. The town was scared and reported to the higher-ups. Something was wrong, and the spirit group was informed. The spirit group sent 2 spiritual readers, but obviously, they were completely wiped out. Zhongli Panying's information showed that someone had entered the village 5 days ago. The village was too isolated and too far away. Even if there was a problem, it was unrealistic to send people to intercept it because not many people would go there, not to mention the news could not be spread. The spiritual readers went missing 3 days ago. Realizing that something was wrong, the spirit group directly went to Xiao Jin. The reason they were quick-witted was that the spirit group had no one now. The previous few matters had taken a big hit, and this time, it was such a strange matter. In order to avoid losses, they would definitely ask Xiao Jin to take a look. It did not matter if it was expensive. The spirit group did not lack money. Besides, as long as Xiao Jin was involved, she would definitely be able to handle it. Either there is a formation, or there is something inside killing people. Mo Jiang sat in the car and blew on his nails. There are only these two possibilities. Xiao Jin. Any normal person would think so. Mo Jiang. Thank you for thinking that I am a normal person. In order to avoid dangerous situations, they specially rented a car. The driver was Song Yanqing, and they followed the guidance of the GPS all the way to the mountains. As he drove, he said, Yuchi village is very remote. The GPS only shows that we are in a neighboring village. If we get there, we will probably have to ask someone to find the way in. Xiao Jin said, Zhongli Painting helped us contact the local police station. They will tell us how to get in. This time, even Song Yanqing and you received a notification, which meant that it wasn't a simple matter. He didn't know what was waiting for him, or if it was a new clue. When they drove to the local town, it was already nighttime. There were indeed police officers there to meet them, but when the police officers heard that they were going there tonight with a child, they refused to agree no matter what. That village is so strange. You really have to think it through? And it's too far away. Even if you go there now, it should be morning by the time you reach the village. It's dangerous to drive at night. Xiao Jin and the others declined the good intentions of the police. They knew it was dangerous, but going at night meant that they could get more clues. After receiving the map drawn by the police, Song Yanqing and the others continued to drive. It was quiet in the car. They were in the countryside, and it was dark outside. They drove past desolate places. Other than the asphalt road, it was hard to see a house. The road was so quiet that it was frightening. Inside the car, Aju was quietly playing with building blocks. Mo Jiang, on the other hand, found it rather interesting. Kid, aren't you afraid? You looked up and smiled. With sister Xiao Jin and brother Yanqing here, why should I be afraid? Mo Jiang patted Yu's little head. You have a bright future. She looked at the night outside and was a little curious. How much longer? Xiao Jin answered according to the time given by the police. About 3 hours. Chapter 854. In the second half of the road, they really entered the range of the mountain. Especially in the second half of the road, they drove directly from the mountain. That section of the road was very compact. It was next to the mountain wall. Not far from the left was a cliff. It could only accommodate 2 cars. Those who dared to build the road here were some brave warriors. However, the road here also came to an end. The second half of the road was very bad. It was almost completely man-made. Song Yanqing bought the off-road car at the last minute. It could handle such a section. The village was in the mountain. After this section of the road, it was at the foot of the mountain. Because there was only one road into the village, the people in the village rarely came out except for big purchases. It was normal that there was no news. As they drove down a slope, the road gradually widened. At the foot of the mountain, they saw a house that was almost emitting smoke. Mo Jiang raised his eyebrows. Didn't they say that most of the people are dead? There are still people living here? If we can't get out, the people here can't do anything. Xiao Jin looked at the surrounding environment of the village and suddenly said, I don't feel any traces of a formation. It's not a formation? Song Yanqing was a little surprised. When he drove into the village, they came down from a hillside. It was as if they came out of the mountain. A huge mouth like a bloody basin spat them out. When they came down from the hillside, they saw several cars parked on both sides of the road behind the outermost village. These cars were all good cars. There was a luxury car, a car modified by the spirit group, and a police car. Only the car was empty. There was no one in it. The car was a little dusty. It looked like it had been parked for a while. But the people were gone. Xiao Jin looked at the time. It was 4:30 in the morning. She said, the people in the village wake up so early. They woke up to make breakfast. You suddenly said, Mom and I used to wake up so early because we had to work. Mo Jiang and Xiao Jin both glanced at him. Song Yanqing did not drive in rashly. Instead, he parked the car by the side of the road next to the police car. He got out of the car and looked at the cars. He pointed at the luxury car and said, it doesn't look like it belongs to the spirit group. The land price for this car is 5 million yuan. Mo Jiang immediately looked at it twice. The car was a bit like the off-road vehicle that Song Yanqing had bought, but it was bigger. She couldn't help but complain, "Such an ugly car is worth 5 million?" Xiao Jin asked, "Is there such a rich person in this village?" They got out of the car and started walking towards the village. Going straight down from the hillside, there were a few families halfway up the hillside. There were more than a dozen families scattered about in the village below. It was as if the bottom was the center. Xiao Jin and the others first looked at the houses halfway up the mountain. When they knocked on the houses one by one, they found something unbelievable. The door could be opened, and there was even a fire burning in the house. But there was no one. It was as if someone was cooking but had just left. However, Xiao Jin and the others did not feel anyone's aura. She and Song Yanqing looked at each other and realized that this matter was unusual. Xiao Jin had never encountered such a thing in a long time. She silently became serious and summoned Devourer to set up a formation. However, the rules jumped out. There is no danger. It is in accordance with the rules. Chapter 855. Xiao Jin. She didn't know why Rule would jump out and make such a prediction. Ever since she freeloaded Rule last time, it didn't seem to want to pay much attention to Xiao Jin. Now it jumped out of its own accord. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Xiao Jin's array was even larger. Rule seemed to be flustered and exasperated and retreated. Unless she wanted to, no one else could see her array. But at that moment, Mo Jiang still felt a very fatal pressure coming from Xiao Jin's body. It was as if there was a power that made her extremely afraid. She knew that Xiao Jin was powerful before, but now that she felt this, she still felt a little wary. This was obviously not on the same level as her. She was even more suspicious of Xiao Jin's origins. In her memory, she had no memory. She just didn't feel such a powerful existence. There was no one in the few houses halfway up the mountain, but Song Yanqing suddenly said, "Someone is talking at the foot of the mountain." They held their breaths and listened carefully. Sure enough, they heard faint voices. Mo Jiang said, "Although you two are big shots, I still have to say that I don't feel like something has happened here." Xiao Jin touched his chin. "It seems like someone is trapped here. They just can't get out, but I don't feel any traces of an array. If it wasn't an array, then it was strange. Either an extremely powerful wizard had a special ability that trapped people here. Anything was possible." Song Yanqing suddenly said, "Then, what Zhongli Painting said about people dying here? The spirit group was missing, but the first news that came out was that many people had died. That was why they came to investigate." Xiao Jin said, "Then we need to see for ourselves. Let's go down." No matter what the reason was, there had to be a reason. She still had a pile of demonized spirit seeds in her hands. Although she was using them to reduce her own backlash, she would still use them when she needed to. Xiao Jin was not arrogant, because others could not harm her, but she knew that there was a very strange existence in the natural array point. Even if she could not feel that there was an array here, it did not mean that there was nothing else. When they went down the mountain and officially entered the village, they finally saw a villager passing by. However, when the villager saw them, he was shocked and quickly ran back to his home. His home was not far in front of him. He ran back to his home and slammed the door shut with a bang. Mo Jiang. Do I look that scary? What does he mean? Ever since Mo Jiang woke up, she did not display the demeanor of a high priestess at all. She was very irritable. You even said sweetly, "Sister Mo Jiang, you're very beautiful." Mo Jiang pinched his face and said, "You have good taste. It's not necessarily about looks." Song Yanqing thought about the man's panicked expression when he closed the door and left. He seemed just shocked by our appearance. He was very scared that there were people in the village. This proved that there was indeed something strange in the village. Xiao Jin said, "Look at the phone." Everyone looked down at their phones. It was indeed a common plot in horror stories. There was no signal, so they could not send any messages. At this moment, the door of a house on the slope in front of them suddenly opened. A girl's voice was also heard. "Why are we going out so early in the morning?" Chapter 856. When the girl saw Xiao Jin, she was very shocked. "Xiao Jin? When Xiao Jin saw her, he really didn't expect to see her, so he frowned a little, which was rare. Enchanting? Enchanting was also stunned. She didn't expect to see Xiao Jin in such a remote place in her hometown. Are you here to look for Qi Lian? Enchanting was stunned. She turned around and shouted toward the house behind her, Qi Lian, your sister is here to look for you. Where? As soon as he heard this familiar voice, Song Yanqing saw Xiao Jin press his hand to his forehead, which was rare. He probably knew the reason and couldn't help but smile. A familiar figure rushed out of the house. Who else could it be but Muzilian? When Muzilian saw Xiao Jin, he was also stunned. Fuck, Xiao Jin? Why are you here? How did you find me in such a remote place? Mom is so worried about me that she sent you to look for me. I'm so touched. As he spoke, 2 drops of crocodile tears seemed to fall from the corners of Muzilian's eyes. Xiao Jin's voice was very cold. Do you think it's a good thing that I'm here? Muzilian. What did he mean by that? His heart suddenly turned cold. Another person walked out from behind him. It was Zhongyu. Xiao Jin understood at once. Zhongyu invited Muzilian to the countryside to play. However, Xiao Jin would never have thought that their countryside was actually here. This was the place where something went wrong. For a moment, he suddenly believed what Muzilian said. There was indeed a reason why he was chosen by Rule Mountain. He was destined to be unlucky. When Zhongyu saw Xiao Jin and the others, he was faintly in disbelief. He was stunned for a moment and said, Are you here to look for Muzilian? Xiao Jin regained his composure. If I'm here to look for him, do you think I'll bring someone else along? When Muzilian saw Song Yanqing, he was dumbfounded. Brother Yanqing, you're here for me too? Song Yanqing felt that Muzilian's self-associative ability was simply too strong. Moreover, he was also full of self-comforting spirit. The last time in the Mountain of Laws, he had already felt it. There was a slight smile on his lips, but the words that came out of his mouth were a little creepy. You've been here for a few days. Don't you feel that there's something wrong with this village? No, what's wrong? Isn't this Zhongyu's hometown? Muzilian jumped up, vaguely feeling that Song Yanqing was trying to scare him. Don't scare me, Brother Yanqing. What's wrong? I've been calling home every day for the past few days, and I even told my mother that we'll go back tomorrow. Xiao Jin suddenly interrupted him. You've been calling home every day? Fei only received 1 call from you yesterday. In the call, you said that you lost your phone and used someone else's phone to call home. Before you could finish the call, you hung up. Fei didn't even have time to reply to you. Now you're telling me that you've been calling home every day? Muzilian. Enchanting was stunned. Zhongyu's eyes suddenly focused. There's nothing wrong with us these past few days. Qi Lian did call home, and Annie Qiao even told him to take good care of his body. He paused at this point. Of course, he also knew that something was wrong. Xiao Jin and the others came from outside, but they were in the mountains. If Xiao Jin said so, then who was Muzilian calling these past few days? Muzilian's face was pale and pitiful. I didn't lose my phone at all. Chapter 857. He even took out his phone to prove it. His phone was indeed in his hand. He looked at Xiao Jin bitterly. Don't scare me. It's not funny at all. When I called home yesterday, Mom told me to go back early. You and Grandpa were still talking on the phone? Xiao Jin, I saw Xiao Fei answer the phone yesterday. I was listening at the side, but I didn't say anything. Grandpa wasn't there. Also, Fei said that your phone hasn't been working since the day before yesterday. The only call was yesterday. I just got home. Muzilian, his heart fell into hell in an instant. He knew it. He was the chosen one. Damn it, the incident at Mount Ruji wasn't over yet. He was chosen again. Enchanting was even more confused. She didn't understand Xiao Jin at all. How is that possible? My brother and I were listening at the side when Qi Lian made the phone call. We've been here for the past few days. Everything is normal. She was an ordinary person who hadn't experienced anything. Naturally, she couldn't feel that something was wrong. Zhongyu immediately grabbed Enchanting's hand and looked at Xiao Jin with a serious expression. What's the situation outside? Mo Jiang looked at them with interest. Song Yanqing explained. We received a notice that many people in your village have died. The two policemen and two special personnel who came and have all disappeared. There was no news at all. We didn't expect you to be here too. In Shutian's face paled. Where did the policemen come in these 2 days? Now, she could feel that something was wrong. If such a thing really happened, why didn't they feel anything when they were inside? Xiao Jin suddenly looked back. This time, they saw a hair-raising situation. The car was gone. When they came down, they could clearly see the car halfway up the mountain. But now, they couldn't see it. Together with their vehicles, they were missing. It was as if they had truly and completely entered a world isolated from the rest of the world. Maybe what happened just now wasn't an illusion. There were indeed traces of people living in those places, but the people were gone, because they were in 2 completely different worlds. Xiao Jin turned his head and looked down at Song Yanqing. I don't feel any changes in the world. Unlike the Mountain of Laws, which used its power to create an illusory world, she could feel that this world was also real. The villagers, Muzilian, Zhongyu, and the others were also like that. However, there was a special boundary that separated them. Since they were able to walk in, there was no reason for the police officers and the spirit team members to disappear. Unless what they entered was a crevice. Xiao Jin's group had different powers. They had entered the real world. As for Zhongyu and the others, they belonged here. It's starting again? Muzilian's face turned pale. We're in here again? He glanced at his phone. Fuck, why is there no signal on my phone? He had been playing with 4G on his phone for the past few days. Why was there no signal all of a sudden? No beginning, no rules. Song Yanqing asked Zhongyu, Are you from here? Zhongyu nodded. We spent our childhood here. He hesitated for a moment and pulled Shutian. Shutian is not from here. This is my hometown. Chapter 858. In Shutian didn't know what was going on, but she was a little confused. Brother, what happened? What are you talking about? Zhongyu said to them. Let's go up first, it's cold outside. As expected of a man who had experienced the mountain of rules, he was calm enough. Realizing that something was wrong, if he panicked, it would arouse the fear of others. He let Xiao Jin and the others come up. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing went up together. Mo Jiang pulled you. You was a child, but she wasn't afraid. She just looked around curiously. They entered the house where Zhongyu and the others were. The lights were on in the house. It was just a simple 3-tiled house. On the left was the kitchen, which was made of mud. I lived here when I was young, Zhongyu said softly. This time I came back to sweep my grandfather's grave. I thought the scenery here was good, so I called Qi Lian to come with me. I didn't expect it to be another trap. Muzilian now seriously suspected that he was destined to be unlucky. He now knew that Xiao Jin was wrong. Where Xiao Jin appeared, how could it be a good place? He wiped his face and looked at Xiao Jin. Speak. I can bear whatever you say now. You said that this is not a game. Then where is this? Can we really not get out? After he said this, his eyes looked at Mo Jiang, who came with them. He had never seen Mo Jiang, but looking at faces was a common problem for men, especially a man like Muzilian. His eyes didn't move, and he looked at Mo Jiang in a daze. In Shutian saw this and pouted, as if she was unhappy. Mo Jiang saw this and winked at Muzilian. Xiao Jin. As a result, Muzilian looked away with some disgust. Mo Jiang. You were scared just now, and now you have this attitude? Dogman. Whether or not we can leave depends on the experiment later. Song Yanqing asked, Did you see anything unusual when you were sleeping at night? Have you seen other villagers in this village? Did you feel anything unusual? No. Zhongyu replied in a deep voice. They're all people I know. There's nothing wrong with them. Nothing happened when I was sleeping at night. What do you know about the situation? As he spoke, he poured a cup of hot water for them. The cups had a rustic atmosphere. They were all white cups with pot lids from the olden days. Xiao Jin held the water and said, There is no news for the time being. I will go and see the other villagers later. You can try to see if you can get out, but I don't think you can. You said that Qi Lian had been calling for the past few days, but he didn't call at all. Now that we've arrived, there's no signal. This means that you've been immersed in a fake environment, but the strange thing is that it's now real. It's fake again. Isn't that the mountain of law you were talking about? Musillian said nervously. I knew it. Things won't end so easily. This must be the second assessment. If we can't get through it, we'll die again. Xiao Jin said, Okay. Then have you received any information about the assessment? You've been here for a few days, and you're only allowed to play with your phone? Musillian said with a wooden face. That's because you didn't come, so the mission couldn't start. Xiao Jin nodded. You're right, but this time, you'll have to pray for yourself. Musillian. Chapter 859. Musillian felt that Xiao Jin's words were a little too much. Could it be that the reason why we suddenly walked out of Mount Regulus was also because of you? He looked a little confused. Wasn't it because of my intelligence and wisdom? Everyone. Zhongyu couldn't listen anymore. Because enchanting didn't know anything. He reached out and waved the back of Musillian's head and looked at Xiao Jin. Then let's see if we can go out later? Xiao Jin nodded. Have you seen anyone go out of the village in the past few days? Zhongyu shook his head. We haven't seen anyone. I don't know about other times. This place was surrounded by mountains. It was very troublesome to go out. This was also the reason why Zhongyu rarely came back after he left his family. He didn't expect that something would happen in his hometown. Most importantly, he didn't know what happened. But from the tone of Xiao Jin and the others, he realized the seriousness of this matter. When he lowered his head to think, enchanting was still unaware of the situation. What are you talking about? What was wrong? What was fake? She was a little confused as she listened. Realizing that there was someone here who didn't know the situation, Zhongyu could only pat her head and sigh. Shutian, it's a long story. Enchanting, make it short. Zhongyu. He paused and hesitated. Mo Jiang couldn't stand it anymore. Why are you hesitating? Why don't you just tell her that this world is fake and that there might be something that could kill people? When we came, we received news that many people died here. You said that you didn't see the 2 policemen and the special team members who came in. But when we came, we did see their car parked halfway up the mountain. If you don't know what happened, then it's very likely that something happened to them. Mo Jiang's deduction was correct. Xiao Jin nodded and stood up. It's still early. Yin Qing and I will go check on the surrounding villagers. You and Mo Jiang will go check the place we came from. If you can't get out, then it means there's a big problem here. Musillian was a little shocked. There's only you and Brother Yanqing. What if something happens to the 2 of you? It was rare to see Musillian so conscientious at such a crucial moment. Xiao Jin said, How about this? You and Zhongyu go take a look. Brother Yanqing, Mo Jiang, and I will go take a look elsewhere. Musillian waved his hand. Forget it then. There was strength in numbers. He and Zhongyu were practically fellow sufferers. Both of them were humans. So how could they have the means to face this terrifying world? If something were to happen, they would not be able to stop it. The people that Xiao Jin brought with him were definitely not ordinary people. Mo Jiang sneered. Xiao Jin brought Song Yanqing to take a look around the village. They also gave you to Mo Jiang to take care of. You was a spirit master of speech. If something was wrong, you might be able to sense it. With Mo Jiang protecting him, nothing would happen. Plus, they were not far from the village. After walking out of Zhongyu's house, they followed the path up the mountain. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing looked around the village. The village was surrounded in the middle of the mountain, and there were intersecting slopes everywhere. There were houses built on top of the slopes. The roads on both sides were made of frozen mud. They had been formed by people walking for a long time. There were also trees of different heights and farmland in the middle. Chapter 860. Standing here, Zhongyu looked around and had a relatively wide field of vision. He could see the whole village at a glance. There were about 20 families, and there were quite a lot of people. Song Yanqing looked around and suddenly locked onto a place. Look at the 3 connected houses. Is it the location in the photo? Xiao Jin looked in the direction he was pointing. Indeed, there was a flat slope there. There were 3 houses on it. They were all tiled houses and were relatively old. The tiles were pitch black. From this side, the houses looked quite oppressive. It was indeed similar to the location in the photo. Xiao Jin nodded. Let's go and take a look. The roads in the village were all connected. There were small roads connecting the villagers wherever they went. However, the strange thing was that along the way, they could see smoke coming out of several houses. The wooden doors were closed, and no one came out. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing could feel that someone was spying on them from the house. When they slowly turned their eyes, they could not see anyone. However, they knew that someone was watching them from the house. When they walked to the door of the 3 houses, Xiao Jin whispered, "There are people in each house." In other words, there were people living in each house. There were no empty houses. It was said that many people had died. It was reasonable to hold a funeral when people died. However, there was no sign of a funeral in the village. There were no traces of a formation. What was the reason for all this? Xiao Jin looked around. They had already walked up to the farmers in the picture. The doors of the 3 houses were tightly shut. These 3 houses were different from the other houses. Only one of them had smoke coming out of it. Xiao Jin walked to the house, emitting smoke. The house was actually very dilapidated. There was a door on the side. Looking inside through the dilapidated wooden door, they could see a woman cooking in the kitchen. Xiao Jin looked at it and asked politely, "Is there anyone here?" The person in the house seemed to be a little scared. Xiao Jin could hear the kitchen utensils falling to the ground. He was obviously frightened. That person didn't dare to make a sound. Song Yanqing took over from Xiao Jin and said warmly, "Hello, we are here to visit relatives in Jade Pond Village. We have no ill intentions, but we have some questions to ask you." Song Yanqing's voice became low and gentle, as if it had the power to soothe people's hearts. Unfortunately, the person inside refused to utter a word, until Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing heard, "Mom," it was called in the local dialect. However, the word mother was too simple and could be recognized immediately. It was a little girl's voice. "What are you doing? Don't talk." The woman's dialect was mixed with panic. This time, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing were in a bit of a dilemma because they did not understand the local dialect. However, this was not a problem for Xiao Jin. She only drew an array formation in the void, and the words just now could be understood. "They don't dare to speak." Xiao Jin retracted his gaze and whispered to Song Yanqing, "They are very afraid of speaking." Song Yanqing's eyes suddenly darkened. The two walked to the open space beside them. Song Yanqing said to her, "I felt that something was wrong when I came in just now. Now I know what is wrong." Quiet. He looked around, and his voice was soft and illusory. "It is early in the morning, but they are cooking without making any sound. We didn't even hear the sound of insects and birds. It was so quiet that it felt suffocating." Chapter 861. This was an important piece of information. The people they called earlier made a sound, which meant that the world was normal. But they didn't dare to make a sound. They had been talking since they came in, so they didn't notice anything was wrong. Including Zhongyu and the others. They were all normal. Now that it was quiet, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing felt that the surroundings were dead silent. There wasn't even the sound of insects or birds. In such an environment, it always gave people a particularly oppressive feeling. "We can't get out." At this moment, Musilian's voice came from the hillside. He probably wasn't shouting, but everyone could hear him clearly. It was too quiet, as if the slightest movement could be magnified. At this moment, Xiao Jin suddenly felt something strange. She turned her head and finally saw traces of people in the village. It was a little girl, lying on the second floor of a farmhouse opposite, looking at her curiously. She was about 5 or 6 years old, and her face was round like a bun. There was no fear in her eyes, only curiosity. Xiao Jin looked at her, and so did Song Yanqing. They looked at the little girl, and the little girl grinned at them after a while. It seemed like she was laughing. However, when she laughed, there was no sound. Soon, a person walked over from the window, seeming a little shocked. He pulled her down, but carefully. Then his movements were very flustered, but he also closed the window very gently. The people in this village don't dare to speak. Xiao Jin confirmed this, and Song Yanqing also nodded. Xiao Jin said, "Let's go find Musilian and the others." Song Yanqing said, "Okay." They walked along the hillside, and Musilian and the others began to come down. When Mu Qi saw her, he almost collapsed and said, "We really can't get out." We tried to go outside, but we couldn't find the car. When we went into the valley, we came out from the same place we went in. We just can't get out. Muchi nodded and said, all right. In other words, they were indeed trapped here. Xiao Jin said, don't panic. Muzillion asked, aren't you worried that we can't get out? Xiao Jin, don't panic. Muzillion. He had forgotten that the person in front of him was not a normal human being and could not be judged by common sense. Yin Shutian's face was pale. If she didn't know anything, her worldview had been refreshed after going out for a walk. After all, the road was still the same, and the place was still the same, but the car they drove was gone. Not to mention the car, there wasn't even a trace of the car left on the ground. Not to mention that the hillside was covered in mud. It had rained for the past few days. How could there be no traces at all? Yin Shutian trembled. Are we going around in circles? Mo Jiang. I'm afraid it's even scarier than going around in circles. Yin Shutian. This was a little beyond her imagination. Xiao Jin told them what he and Song Yanqing had discovered. We found something wrong with this village, and that is that the villagers don't dare to speak. When we came here, we didn't hear any sounds other than our voices. Don't you think that this place is especially quiet? As soon as she said this, Muzillion and the others immediately quieted down. Sure enough, after no one spoke, the place became deathly silent. As long as there were traces of people living here, and there were so many trees around, there would be sounds when the wind blew. How could there be no sound at all? Chapter 862. Muzillion couldn't hold it in any longer. I really didn't notice it. Zhongyu rubbed his forehead. We didn't notice it when we stayed here for the past few days. Muzillion and Yin Shutian were busy playing games every day. They really didn't notice such strange occurrences in the village. Yin Shutian trembled a little. Brother, didn't I ask you why the people in the village didn't talk to us? When they greeted them, they ignored them. At first, she thought that Zhongyu and the others had a grudge with someone when they left. When Zhongyu heard Yin Shutian's words, his eyes gradually darkened. Indeed, they had been here for the past few days, but they didn't know many people. Zhongyu also didn't talk to them much. They did ask others, but the people in the village ignored them, so they didn't take it seriously. Who knew that Xiao Jin would bring such strange news? They just ignored you? Song Yanqing suddenly asked. How did they react when you talked? He just doesn't want to talk to us. Yin Shutian was confused. When I greeted them, they didn't seem to see us. Not a word. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing's expressions suddenly became serious. At this time, Muzillion also realized that something was wrong. He reacted. Damn, it's not that they ignored us. Don't tell me they didn't see us at all? Yin Shutian. What kind of horror story was this? It's very possible. Xiao Jin said, this is a real and fake world. It's possible that we didn't enter the real world. You have been trapped in the illusion for the past few days, so those people couldn't see you. But after we came, they could see us, and they were very afraid. She thought for a few seconds. I have to think about it. She had a guess, but she didn't know if it was true. Song Yanqing saw that she was a little hesitant. He first asked Zhongyu to bring everyone back to his house. He then walked to the side to talk to Xiao Jin alone. Do you have any guesses? Xiao Jin nodded. If it's not a spell formation master, then it's even simpler. It's very likely that this is a real world that was created. It wasn't created by a spell formation master. Any wizard or spirit speaker who has the ability to create a world can do it. The premise is that we need to know why they created this world. Xiao Jin looked at the surrounding scenery. The villagers here don't dare to speak. Muzillion's group didn't see the villagers earlier, so we can reasonably speculate that when they first came in, Muzillion's group should have entered a fake world. This is the real world. The police and the people from the spirit team should be here, but we haven't found them yet. Song Yanqing muttered, since you said it is the real world, then is there something there? Like that monster? Xiao Jin nodded. The villagers wouldn't be afraid for no reason. You also dreamed of a monster with an axe in your precognitive dream. Based on the current situation, this monster should be using sound to identify directions. The villagers know this, so they are afraid. We have to at least find a villager to understand the situation. Song Yanqing was deep in thought. He raised his eyes and looked around. Suddenly, his gaze fell on a mountain. Chapter 863. This place was surrounded by mountains on all sides, so it was not strange to have mountains. But the strange thing was that this mountain was the only one that was not connected. It stood alone in the middle, with a large gap on both sides. Only the connecting mountain veins appeared at the bottom, which completely blocked the way out. Because it was very tall, Song Yanqing felt that this mountain was vaguely in the shape of a person. It was like a person kneeling on one knee with his back facing them, holding something in his right hand. This mountain was a little strange, but he just suddenly saw it. After thinking for a while, he asked Xiao Jin, "Don't you think this mountain looks like a person?" Xiao Jin also looked over, took a few glances and nodded. "It looks a little like a kneeling person." Song Yanqing, maybe it formed this shape naturally. The two of them looked at each other, but they couldn't find anything wrong with the situation. They still had to ask Zhongyu and the others. They went back. Xiao Jin was thinking at the side, while Song Yanqing asked Zhongyu, "Do you know the people in the village?" Zhongyu nodded. "I know them. He used to live here when he was a child, so he knew some people in the village. But this time, he was busy worshiping his grandfather. He went to find his relatives several times, but he saw that the door was closed. He knocked on the door, but those people did not open the door and ignored him. His sister also said that the people in the village ignored him. He did not know the reason before, but now he felt a little confused. It was also a little creepy. The people in the village might not even know that they were back. Let's go find those villagers together later. You see if they will pay attention to you this time." After all, Zhongyu grew up in the village. Would the villagers pay attention to Zhongyu? Mo Jiang was a little bored and sat aside. Her nails were a little dazzling. Under the light, the Musilian looked dazzling. Because the sky outside was not completely bright yet, he looked at Mo Jiang several times and could not help but ask Xiao Jin, "Who is she?" Xiao Jin said, "She's a friend of mine." Musilian did not quite believe it. For Xiao Jin to bring her here, she was definitely not a simple person. He whispered, "Why do I find her a little familiar?" Xiao Jin said, "She's a celebrity." Musilian, "Oh, he saw her on the news a few days ago. She was a couple with a little fresh meat." He found her familiar. Now he finally remembered. He had seen her in person. What happened? Mo Jiang looked up at Musilian. "Little brother, if you have something against me, say it out loud. I'm not deaf sitting here. I can hear you." Musilian smiled embarrassedly. "I don't have anything against you. I just find you a little familiar." Mo Jiang, "I'm a celebrity. Of course you find me familiar." Musilian. Shutian looked at Mo Jiang curiously. "You're a celebrity?" Mo Jiang nodded. "Yes. Do you want an autograph, little sister? It's a rare opportunity." Shutian. She had never heard of or seen her before. To be honest, it was a little awkward. Would it hurt Mo Jiang's glass heart? Chapter 864. Mo Jiang didn't mind at all. She was just teasing the two of them. Zhongyu and Song Yanqing prepared to go out to find someone. In the conversation just now, Zhongyu said that there was a person called Uncle Yang in the village. He had lived in the village for a long time. When he was young, he called him Uncle Yang. He had seen him in the past few days. Uncle Yang was still there, and he seemed to be in good health. He was also one of the more famous people in the village. It would be better if they went to find him. However, Zhongyu could only bring Song Yanqing. This Uncle Yang was a little strange. He didn't like to see women. Thus, only he and Song Yanqing could go. After they left, Xiao Jin rubbed his chin. He didn't understand Uncle Yang's strange habit. He still doesn't like to see women? Mo Jiang said, "Maybe he's gay?" Xiao Jin turned to look at her. Mo Jiang didn't feel embarrassed at all. "I've been here for so long. It's time for me to learn some modern knowledge. I'm a fast learner. Maybe I'm originally from this era." But she knew she wasn't. At least, Xiao Jin clearly told her that she had been resurrected. In addition, the people from the spirit group had also revealed some information. Mo Jiang knew that she might have come from thousands of years ago. She said this naturally, but Muzilian and Inshutian's eyelids twitched. This era, Xiao Jin said indifferently. Mo Jiang lost her memory. There are some things she can't remember clearly. Muzilian. This was the first time he had seen someone lose their memory. Wasn't this woman a celebrity? How could someone with amnesia be a celebrity? You have been quietly building blocks at the side. Muzilian couldn't hold it in anymore. He was afraid anyway, so he had to find something to distract himself. Where did this child come from? Xiao Jin. I picked her up? Muzilian. While they were having their daily conversations here, Xiao Jin's array formation allowed her to see some of the situation. Just because she couldn't go didn't mean that she couldn't see what Song Yanqing and the others were doing. When they went this time, Zhong Yu brought Song Yanqing to the house closest to the human-shaped mountain that they had mentioned earlier. It stood alone at the back of the mountain, surrounded by a bamboo forest. Walking in, one could even see a fence surrounding it. The scenery was not bad, but it looked too lonely. Moreover, it was surrounded by mountains and forests. The house was hidden in the mountains and forests, which made it seem too oppressive. When they arrived at the door was closed as expected. However, the sky was already bright. When they went over, an elderly man walked out of the door. He was very old, holding a cane, and there was an obvious cataract in his left eye. However, when he saw Zhong Yu and Song Yanqing, his expression changed. How did you get in? Zhong Yu and Song Yanqing immediately noticed this question. Zhong Yu immediately said, Uncle Yang, it's me. I'm Xiao Yu. Don't you remember? I came back this time to pay respects to my grandfather. Xiao Yu? Uncle Yang looked carefully and realized that it was really Zhong Yu. His expression softened, but he still asked in disbelief, Zhong Yu, when did you come back? Is this your friend? He pointed at Song Yanqing. Zhong Yu nodded. We came back 5 days ago. I even came to look for you, but your house wasn't open at that time. I thought you weren't home. Chapter 865. 5 days ago, Uncle Yang's expression changed drastically. In the end, his expression became a little complicated. After a long time, he actually let out a long sigh. Forget it, you guys come in. He walked over shakily with his walking stick and said, It's daytime now, those things won't appear. You guys are really lucky that you weren't sent in. His words were too obvious. Song Yanqing listened carefully and didn't know what to say. Zhong Yu timely asked, Uncle Yang, what are you talking about? Uncle Yang's cheeks twitched. Come in and talk. Zhong Yu and Song Yanqing nodded and walked in. Uncle Yang let them into the yard and pulled out a chair for them. His gaze fell on Song Yanqing and carefully sized him up, then said, He came with you? Zhong Yu hesitated, but still said, No, they just arrived this morning. Uncle Yang couldn't help but be shocked. He looked at Song Yanqing and carefully sized him up, as if he was completely shocked. Zhong Yu couldn't help but ask, Uncle Yang, what's the reason? He sat down and clenched his fist a little. I'll be honest. When we came back 5 days ago, the people in the village ignored us. I still don't know why. You seem to be at home these few days, so why didn't you open the door when I came to find you? That's because we couldn't see you at all. Song Yanqing and Zhong Yu were a little speechless when Uncle Yang said this. After a while, Zhong Yu's eyes darkened and said, Xiao Jin is right. The people in the village really couldn't see them. In other words, in these 5 days, it was like they were in 2 different worlds from the people in the village. They were in the same space, but the other party couldn't see or touch them. Uncle Yang carefully looked at Zhong Yu. You don't seem very surprised. It seems that you must have felt something when you came in. Zhong Yu didn't say anything. Song Yanqing said warmly, Uncle Yang, nice to meet you. My name is Song Yanqing. I'm Zhong Yu's friend. Maybe you don't understand, but I want to say that according to the outside information, someone in your village called the police a month ago. Then the news spread out that many people in the village died, but the people who were sent in all disappeared. That's why we came in. Looking at you, you obviously know that the world you live in is a bit strange. We're here to save you. You can tell us what you know so that we can make a more accurate judgment. Save? When Uncle Yang heard this, his expression became somewhat distressed. What's there to save? Since the news is spread and you all know that many people have died, Why does it seem that nothing has happened in the village after you came in? That's because we are already dead. Zhongyu, Song Yanqing. To be honest, this matter was a little beyond one's imagination. It was even a little creepy. Zhongyu was a little surprised, which was rare. But Uncle Yang was clearly fine and could even talk to him. If he was already dead, then why could they talk to the dead? Could it be that they were also dead? Zhongyu felt that since Qiao Jin could come in, it meant that it was impossible. Maybe Uncle Yang's cognition was wrong. They didn't know what kind of world they were in. Chapter 866. Uncle Yang looked at them and showed a sad smile. Look, you don't know anything. Zhongyu, you shouldn't have come back. Since we didn't let you in, you just need to leave safely. Why did you break in? Zhongyu's face sank. Uncle Yang, I don't understand. Uncle Yang sighed. In 2 days, you will know. Things will start again. When the time comes, don't be surprised. If you want to go out, do as I say. Zhongyu, the world you are in now is not the world you thought it was. Song Yanqing said, Uncle Yang, when we came here, we found that the people in the village didn't dare to speak. They were afraid when they saw us. What's the reason? Uncle Yang looked at Song Yanqing and said solemnly, because after 12 o'clock at night, monsters will appear in the village. As long as you make a sound, it will hear you. The monsters will disappear in the morning. We can't resist, so we can only keep quiet. Why are they afraid when they see you? That's because you shouldn't be able to come in. Suddenly, people from the outside appeared in this world. Naturally, the people in the village are afraid. Monsters. Zhongyu's pupil shrank. Song Yanqing wasn't shocked, because in his precognitive dream, this scene did appear. A huge monster with an axe was wandering in the village. Every night, it would appear in the village. As long as it encountered something that made a sound, it would chop it down with the axe. The people in the village lived in fear, because if a person made a sound, they would be chopped to death by the axe. Are we really dead? Uncle Yang nodded. When we entered this world, we were already dead. But at least we can live in a way. If we are killed by it, we will disappear completely. Otherwise, why are the people in the village so afraid? At least we still exist in this world. We still have thoughts. If we are killed by that monster, we will be gone. Who wouldn't be afraid? Zhongyu frowned. He didn't understand Uncle Yang's logic. Uncle Yang, how do you know that you are dead? You are clearly. Uncle Yang smiled. You won't understand even if I explain it to you. I know that I'm dead, so I definitely know. You'll understand in 2 days. Uncle Yang's words were vague, and he didn't want to say more. Song Yanqing and Zhongyu couldn't do anything. They could only go back temporarily and tell the rest of the people what they heard. As for Qiao Jin, she already knew what had happened through the array formation. When she heard Uncle Yang's words, she also fell into deep thought. Although the rules were unreliable, the things they foretold were reliable. Why did it say that there was no danger here? Monsters would appear at night, and they would kill anything that made a sound. No matter how he looked at it, it was extremely dangerous. Well, if it's a formation spell, have a spells a spell. After all, sorcerers and spiritualists had all kinds of strange abilities. Who knew what kind of world they would create? Of course, she didn't say anything. When Song Yanqing and Zhongyu returned, the two of them told the people in the house what they had heard. T's ain't, s have a tes have tut. Only Mo Jiang and Aju, the children, remained calm. Chapter 867. They're all dead? What the hell? Musilian patted his face. No, I need to calm down. This was even more ridiculous than the Mountain of Rules. At least the Mountain of Rules clearly said that it was a fake world. As long as you finished the exam, you could live. Now, there were dead people in this world. They clearly told you that they were dead, but now they could communicate with living people normally. This was a serious challenge to any normal person's worldview. Mo Jiang looked at Qiao Jin. You can't see the problem? Qiao Jin shook his head. There are no traces of formations. I can only speculate that this is either a world created by a wizard, or it's a spiritual master. Because it didn't cover a large area, If a high-level spiritual master had enough ability, they could indeed create an imaginary world. The problem now was what this world was like. And what would happen, they didn't know. The original Jade Pond village definitely existed, but it was covered by this world. In other words, there were two situations now. There were still people alive in the real world in the village. After all, Zhongyu grew up in this village. If there was a problem, he would have died long ago. The other situation was that the two worlds intersected with each other and would appear in different timelines. But now it seemed that the latter was unlikely. According to the first situation, Xiao Jin speculated that this world shouldn't have appeared for long. It was very likely that it was triggered recently. After all, the information obtained from the investigation was from a month ago. Xiao Jin said, "Then let's walk around the village." Uncle Yang said that the monsters won't appear during the day. The thing will start in 2 days. We'll know by then. You can ask the villagers. Except for Muzilian and Enchanting, the others were not afraid. Of course, they had to go out and investigate. Muzilian felt that he was simply the god of misfortune. He could encounter all kinds of strange and messy things. When he went back, he must burn incense and pray to Buddha. In this way, he could get rid of his bad luck. Seeing that Xiao Jin and the others were about to go out, he looked back at Enchanting. "Aren't you going out?" Enchanting was terrified. "I'm scared." Muchilian said, "Don't worry. Just based on the fact that you knocked down the men's team with one punch, everyone here should be afraid of you." Enchanting. She felt wronged. I've never experienced something like this before. It was one thing for her not to be afraid of horror movies. Now that she knew that there was something wrong with this world, she would definitely be terrified when she encountered it in real life. Muzilian suddenly felt that his own image had started to grow. After all, he had experienced the things that happened in the Mountain of Laws, and it was even more amazing than Enchanting. He immediately said, "Don't be afraid. According to my experience, we must find out the reason why the monsters attack the villagers at night, and then we can leave." Everyone else. This person was truly optimistic. Xiao Jin felt that things were not that simple. No matter what, they still wandered around the village. On the way, they finally saw some villagers coming out one after another. But when the villagers saw them, their faces were full of horror. They were almost saying that they were terrorists. Fortunately, Zhongyu was one of them. When they saw Zhongyu, a few villagers were finally willing to talk to them tentatively. Chapter 868. But even if they knew, it was useless. The villagers didn't give any useful information, except for Uncle Yang, who told them that it would start in 2 days. But they all revealed one thing in common. They were all dead. As for why they died, they didn't know. It was just an inexplicable feeling. It was equivalent to not finding any useful information after the investigation. At night, Xiao Jin and the others huddled together to sleep. Fortunately, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing had brought suitcases. Zhongyu found blankets for them to sleep on the floor. The men slept together while the girls squeezed together. Xiao Jin could choose not to sleep, so she didn't rest much for the past 2 days, because she wanted to see monsters. However, surprisingly, no monsters appeared for the past 2 days. Zhongyu even asked Uncle Yang why the monsters didn't appear. Uncle Yang only said that it was because the incident was about to start again, and the monsters would appear after the incident was over. He didn't say what this incident meant. 2 days later, early in the morning, Xiao Jin heard a commotion outside. When she looked again, she saw a group of people coming from outside the mountain. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing were stunned when they saw them. That was because they were wearing ancient armor. They looked like a group of soldiers on the battlefield. The leader was holding his chest and wearing the most imposing armor. He had a square face and looked valiant and righteous, like a general. There were about 20 soldiers in this group, and they were all injured. There was only one girl in the group. She was dressed in white and had a delicate face. She looked a little sad as she followed beside the general. Mu Chilian was dumbfounded. "Fuck, don't tell me they're filming?" They were completely confused. What was going on? How could such a scene happen? What was even more surprising was that when the group of people passed by them, the general was shocked when he saw Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin. Shishi. The general pointed at Xiao Jin. He was a little inarticulate because he was too shocked. What kind of clothes are they wearing? Why didn't those men have long hair? This is outrageous. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 20 soldiers raised their weapons at Xiao Jin and the others. Everyone. Musilian moved closer to Xiao Jin and whispered, "Can they see us?" Xiao Jin narrowed his eyes, but his gaze landed on the girl beside the general. The girl was extremely delicate. When she saw Xiao Jin and the others, her expression was a little dazed. "Have you noticed?" Song Yanqing touched Xiao Jin's palm. "This man is carrying an axe." Xiao Jin saw it. This man who looked like a general was not holding a normal weapon in his hand. Instead, he was holding a huge axe. The monster they saw in their dreams was also holding a huge axe. Xiao Jin narrowed his eyes. Zhong Yu stood up and asked them directly, "Where are you from?" "Oui." The general looked at them in confusion. Someone beside him stood up. "How dare you? This is General Yuqi from the Li Kingdom. Why aren't you kneeling when you see her?" These words were a little dazed and at a loss. Muchilian was a bit more direct. He couldn't help but laugh at that moment. "Everyone," Xiao Jin whispered at this moment, "they are the ancients, the real ancients." Chapter 869. This was a strange group of soldiers. They were ancient people, yet they appeared in such a place and even met Xiao Jin. "I've never heard of this Li Kingdom. This is challenging my knowledge of history." Zhong Yu's forehead was throbbing. He was indeed in a terrible fix after encountering something he didn't understand. Song Yanqing, that's normal. Mo Jiang wasn't a character in history books either. To them, Xiao Jin shouldn't even exist. The group of people in front of them could have existed a long time ago. After all, someone like Mo Jiang could appear at that time. It wasn't strange for someone like him to appear in other countries. Mo Jiang looked around curiously and didn't find anything familiar. He only said, "They're injured." "What are you muttering about? Kneel down." The soldiers were still charging at them. At this moment, Song Yanqing stood up and said gently, "Everyone, I see that you're injured too. Why don't you sit down and heal first? We're in the wilderness and haven't seen you before. Please forgive us." Musilian, "Fuck, Brother Yanqing, you're so awesome. What if they're a bunch of lunatics? You really believe that they're generals?" Zhong Yu, "Have you forgotten that we're not in a normal world right now?" Musilian, he had indeed forgotten, but he still found it hard to accept. The mountain of laws was fake, but everything in front of them was real. So much so that such a scene appeared. It was definitely absurd. When General Yuqi heard Song Yanqing's words, his expression eased, but he was still hesitant. "We accidentally passed by here. May I know where this is?" Xiao Jin, "This is Huaxia, another country." Everyone. General Yuqi turned pale with fright. "We've already escaped this far? Huaxia, why haven't I heard of it before?" Xiao Jin followed Song Yanqing's words and said, "General, you should stay and heal. If you have any questions, we will tell you." It was unknown if it was due to the plot, but they all believed Xiao Jin's words and went to Zhong Yu's house to treat their injuries. Fortunately, Zhong Yu's family had prepared some medicine. He even went to Uncle Yang to get some things. Uncle Yang didn't seem surprised at all. When he went, he gave them a medicine box. When they opened it, they saw that it was full of modern versions of Western medicine disinfectant. Zhong Yu, the group of soldiers, saw many strange things and couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. The only girl in the regiment also rested. She combed her beautiful hair and sat for a while. Then, she stood up and bowed to everyone. "Thank you, benefactors." You're welcome. You're welcome." At this moment, Mu Qi continued the conversation. He asked the girl, "What's your name? Where are you from?" If they were really a group of ancient people, then that would be too rare. How could he see everything with Xiao Jin? Now that even the ancient people had appeared, if he went out and reported it to the country, wouldn't it be a great merit? The prerequisite was that he wouldn't be sent to a mental hospital as a lunatic. "My name is Li Jiao. Like the general, I came from the Li Kingdom. I encountered bandits on the way and was separated from my family. It was General Yuqi who saved my life. Today, I would like to thank you, benefactors." "Oh, you're welcome. Musilian smiled and waved his hand. Enchanting, and you were very curious as they looked at the group of soldiers. After all, they were ancient people and had never seen them before. Chapter 870. Enchanting was also a strange woman. On the surface, she said that she was afraid, but her ability to accept things was quite strong. It was probably because her brother had taught her a lot of knowledge. She knew that some things now were fake, but the ancient people they saw were real. General Yu Qi and the others were healing their injuries inside. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing came outside. Song Yanqing said, "I now understand what's going on. His name is Yu Qi. I've just asked and confirmed that it's the same name." And this was Yu Qi Village. What was the connection between General Yu Qi and Yu Qi Village? Xiao Jin looked at him with a faint smile. "Don't you feel that there's something wrong with that Li Jiao?" Song Yanqing said, "I have a feeling that she..." Song Yanqing paused and said, "I have a different feeling about her. This difference comes from attraction." Xiao Jin continued this sentence and said with a smile, "But it's not what you think. I also know why you dreamed, and it just had to be the two of you. Because that Li Jiao is a spirit master. She was the one who summoned you here." Song Yanqing didn't find it strange. Instead, he sighed softly. Then I guess, right? When he saw Li Jiao, he felt that something was wrong. Now that he thought about it, it was because of the special connection between spirit masters. This world was created by Li Jiao. This world was created by Li Jiao. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing said this at the same time. A smile appeared on the corner of Song Yanqing's mouth. Then he said, "I just don't know what's going on with that monster. That depends on why Li Jiao summoned you and you. She must have a reason to summon you." Xiao Jin said, "The rule formation said that there's no danger here. This danger is for us. It seems that we have to wait for them to continue the plot." This is very similar to Hu Qin's backtracking array point last time. It's also immersed in her memories. The difference is that we can only play a role in that world. This time, we have completely entered this world. But I guess that even if we enter and Li Jiao and the others see us, it won't affect anything. Song Yanqing nodded. "Let's wait and see. My intuition tells me that it won't take long." Xiao Jin also nodded. At this moment, the previously injured General Yu Qi walked out and said to Xiao Jin and the others, "How should I address the two of you?" General Yu Qi was a general, and he could tell that Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin were not ordinary at a glance. When he was in his own country, he had never seen such immortal-like figures. They were simply like the gods and the legends. If they did not say that this place was called Huaxia, General Yu Qi would even think that he had come to the immortal world. "My name is Song Yanqing, and her name is Xiao Jin." After a pause, Song Yanqing suddenly smiled at General Yu Qi and said, "She's my fiancée, Xiao Jin." "Oh." General Yu Qi's eyes lit up. "Then congratulations. The two of you are a perfect match." Song Yanqing nodded and asked naturally, "General, what did you encounter to come here?" General Yu Qi's face darkened. "We were ambushed by bandits on the way here, which is why we met with such a disaster. However, we are lucky to have met all of you in such a fairyland-like place." Chapter 871. General Yu Qi had escaped from the Li Kingdom. The Li Kingdom was at war. They even encountered robbers on the way and saved Li Jiao on the way. According to him, this world was too chaotic. The people were living in poverty everywhere. General Yu Qi was a small general, but there was nothing he could do. The Li Kingdom was not recorded in history, but Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing did not need to care about this. They knew very well that something must have happened after this story, causing Li Jiao to use her ability to trap them here. Day after day, year after year, every time a certain time, this world would restart. After an unknown amount of time, perhaps like Mo Jiang, she had been trapped for thousands of years. Although General Yu Qi was in the same space as them, she did not have much contact with them. Later, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing discovered that many ancient people wearing cloth clothes appeared in the village. They came from those peasant families. They took good care of these soldiers. They looked like villagers who had lived here for a long time, and they had indeed never heard of the existence of the Li Kingdom. They did not know what kind of history it was. But what was surprising was that they could see Qiao Jin, but they could not see the original ordinary villagers in the village. It was Uncle Yang and his group. This really made people unable to see the situation clearly. It's a little similar to Hu Qin's backtracking array point. It's probably because we have an abnormal ability that General Yuqi and the others can see us. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing were deep in thought in the courtyard. When they saw Zhong Yu walk out from the other side, their expressions were a little solemn. "I'll go and ask." He opened his mouth and looked at Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing. Those ancient people are like ghosts. The people in the village can see them, but the ancient people can't see them. Just as you said, they seem to be experiencing a plot. Uncle Yang also said that in the months since they came in, this has already happened 3 times. Those people can't see them, but as long as this plot disappears, that monster will reappear. Song Yanqing pondered for a moment and asked, "Since Uncle Yang told you this, why didn't he tell you what happened later?" Because Uncle Yang said that they didn't know either. They didn't know where General Yuqi and the others came from, or how it ended. It was as if something was deliberately erasing their memories. He only remembered that this plot would happen. Qiao Jin fell into deep thought. Zhong Yu looked at Qiao Jin. He knew that Qiao Jin was the most likely person to know what was going on, so he didn't disturb her. Right now, General Yuqi and the others were staying in the village, living in the houses of the ancient people. These few days, Muzilian and Mo Jiang had been blindly monitoring them, and they had learned quite a bit of information. At this moment, a woman's graceful voice suddenly sounded. "Miss Qiao, Sir Song, Sir Zhong." Li Jiao walked over. When she saw them talking here, a gentle smile bloomed on her face. "According to you, you are not from here. I want to ask you, when are you planning to leave this place? I don't know if you can bring General Yuqi and the others out as well." Qiao Jin knew that this was just a memory of the past. Obviously, General Yuqi and the others couldn't leave. However, she didn't refuse. She only asked, "Why are you only bringing the general and the others away? Aren't you leaving?" Chapter 872. Li Jiao was an important figure. She was a spiritualist, just like how Qiao Jin could tell that he was a spiritualist at a glance. This strange world must be because of Li Jiao's existence. She could also tell that Li Jiao and the others were people from 1,000 years ago. She didn't know when they existed. This world could only be related to Li Jiao. What was her purpose for summoning Song Yanqing and you? Li Jiao lowered her head and looked at the ground. After a while, her smile seemed to be a little forced. "I have some matters to attend to and can't go with you. I can only return the way I came. To be honest, when I was saved by General Yuqi, my parents were separated from me. I have to go back and find them. The Li Kingdom is in chaos. It wasn't easy for General Yuqi to save me. I can't let them go back and get hurt." She spoke with some sadness, as if she was helpless about the war in the Li Kingdom. However, Song Yanqing caught the crux of the matter. General Yuqi protects the country and is fighting a war outside. He has a mission on his shoulders. You said you don't wish to implicate General Yuqi, but can the bandits defeat General Yuqi? This was a very normal logic. General Yuqi was a general. If he went back to save Li Jiao's parents, it was not impossible. The bandits were definitely afraid of the imperial court officials. Why did Li Jiao let them take General Yuqi away and go back alone? She could also ask for help from Qiao Jin and the others. Of course, Song Yanqing and the others knew that Li Jiao was a spiritualist and had the ability to protect herself. But now they should know. They could only figure it out from a normal perspective. When Li Jiao heard this, her expression froze. She blinked slightly and her tone was a little desolate. "I just don't want to implicate you." After saying this, she didn't seem to want to say any more. She lowered her head and went to look for General Yuqi. The 3 of them could see that there was something wrong with her. Zhong Yu asked, "Is this world related to her?" "It's very obvious." Song Yanqing stared at Li Jiao's back. He had already guessed something. If that monster with the giant axe is General Yuqi's transformation, then I guess Li Jiao might not be chased by the bandits. She's a spirit master of speech. The person chasing her is not an ordinary person. She doesn't want to implicate General Yuqi and the others. Zhong Yu paused for a moment. What is a spirit speaker? Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. That's right, they had talked for so long, but there were still people like Zhong Yu who didn't know about the existence of spirit speakers. Xiao Jin glanced at Zhong Yu and could only give him a brief explanation. Zhong Yu had already expected such a thing after the incident at the Mountain of Laws. Now that he knew about this matter, he gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Although he was shocked, he had also expected such a thing. It turned out that this world wasn't as simple as he thought. Things were starting to become clearer. This world seemed to be exactly as the rules had said. There was no danger. Li Jiao seemed to have summoned them for a request. Perhaps she wanted to resolve the predicament of this world. Thus, in the next few days, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing asked the others to reduce the number of times they wandered around the village. They waited at Zhong Yu's home for the development of the matter. There would always be an end, and they realized that even if they didn't appear often, the people in the village didn't seem to be acting strangely. General Yuqi and his 20 or so subordinates were recuperating in the village. Li Jiao didn't come to look for Xiao Jin and the others anymore. She often appeared by the river in the village and stared at the surrounding mountains. Her expression was a little blank and anxious. Chapter 873. The ancients in the village were people who had appeared before. They lived according to the rules. There were men and women, old and young. They showed great kindness to General Yuqi and the others. They took care of General Yuqi as if they were showing Xiao Jin and the others what had happened in the past. The people in the village were kind and simple. They quickly healed General Yuqi's injuries. Even with a bug like Xiao Jin and the others, they did not hide anything. About a week had passed. It was so long that Musilian felt a headache. He wanted to chat with these people and know more. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing did not let him go, so he did not dare to do anything. He could only stay at Zhong Yu's house all day. It was strange. Zhong Yu's house was the only house where no ancients had appeared. There was no Wi-Fi and no signal. Even if his phone was charged, he could only play small games. These days were so boring that Musilian felt a little desperate. Until one midnight, when Xiao Jin and the others were resting, they suddenly heard other movements in the village. At the same time, Xiao Jin finally felt the turmoil of this world. It was as if the real world that had been created had finally fluctuated, revealing its fake side. The others could not feel it, but Song Yanqing and you could. Song Yanqing woke up, and you also got up. He appeared a little flustered and impatient. Xiao Jin heard the commotion outside and only whispered, "Don't be agitated. We'll just watch from here." Among the few of them, only Musilian and Enchanting did not wake up. Strictly speaking, only the two of them were considered ordinary people, so their perception was not as strong as the others. Zhong Yu also woke up immediately because he had a vigilant personality. He woke up immediately when something was wrong. Xiao Jin could accurately see what was happening outside through the formation. A group of people came to the village. They held torches and were dressed the same as Li Jiao and the others. They belonged to the ancients from 1,000 years ago. A group of people held sharp weapons. The person confronting them in front of them was Li Jiao. The leader of this group of people was an old woman with a cold expression. She said to Li Jiao, "Li Jiao, you are the holy maiden of our holy palace. How can you leave the palace without permission? You have to come back with us." Li Jiao's face was a little pale. "Can I still live after I go back? You've already killed my parents. Now you want me to go back only because of my ability. They are not your parents. You are the saintess. You never had parents." This old woman was expressionless, and her eyes were even a little lifeless. She looked at Li Jiao and spoke. Her voice was like a poisonous snake. "If you go back with us now, the people in this village can still live. How dare you?" Li Jiao seemed to be frightened. She looked at the woman in shock and anger. "They're just ordinary people. You said that the holy palace never kills mortals. If we kill them all, who will know? The woman only stared at Li Jiao. Are you going to leave or not? Zhong Yu and the others opened a crack in the door and watched. They were too far away, so they couldn't hear anything clearly. Only Qiao Jin was listening. Song Yanqing, and you could vaguely hear something. However, when they heard this conversation, Song Yanqing frowned slightly. They had guessed correctly. Li Jiao was not hiding from bandits, but a group of humans who were not ordinary people. In that era, there were also spiritual readers. Qiao Jin could tell that this woman was an array master. Chapter 874. What happened? Their movements eventually woke General J. Poole up. He walked out with an axe in his hand. When he saw the woman here, he was shocked. Who are you? General Yu Qi was full of righteousness, and his angry look was very intimidating. However, the woman in front of him was not afraid. She only looked at General Yu Qi, and her expression became even uglier. You, a holy maiden, actually had an affair with a mortal. Li Jiao's face was pale. Don't talk nonsense. If it wasn't for General Yu Qi, I would have been killed by the people of the Holy Palace that day. Now that you want to bring me back, do you think I don't know your purpose? I definitely won't let him come back to life. This is something that goes against the heavens. If I can't do it, don't even think about it. The woman's eyes gradually narrowed. Her pupils were long and thin, like the pupils of a snake. It looked a little terrifying. General Yu Qi saw that something was wrong and immediately woke up his subordinates. He looked at the woman and said, I don't care who you are. Leave this place quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless with the huge axe in my hand. When the woman heard this, she laughed coldly. What happened next was just as Qiao Jin had imagined. This group of people from the Holy Palace began to destroy General Yu Qi and the others. They even began to slaughter the people in the village. The woman waved her wrist and set up a formation. A thick fog rolled, and dozens of strange-looking monsters ran out from it. General Yu Qi was shocked. He had never seen such a thing before, but he reflexively pulled Li Jiao away and shouted, "Run!" Then, he slashed down with the huge axe in his hand towards the monster. The monster ran out from the thick fog, but it had a physical body. After being slashed, it immediately roared and turned into thick smoke and disappeared. The woman's face was also filled with pain. Her gaze was as if she had been poisoned as she looked at General Yu Qi. She gritted her teeth and said, I want you to die. General Yu Qi had come from the battlefield. Not to mention that he had experienced hundreds of battles. His reaction speed was not something that ordinary people could compare to. He held the huge axe in his hand and shouted angrily as he hacked at the group of monsters. The subordinates behind him also heard the commotion and rushed over. Both sides began to fight in the village. Zhong Yu's pupils constricted, and he wanted to rush out to help. Song Yanqing grabbed him and shook his head. He said in a low voice, This is the past. You can't change it. It's too late. Qiao Jin was silent. This world is only reconstructing what happened at that time. We came in with its permission. If we go now, it will collapse immediately. We won't be able to find a reason. We will have to wait. Even so, what happened next was still somewhat unacceptable to them. Although General Yu Qi was fighting with them, ordinary people like them were no match for this woman in front of them. Li Jiao watched all of this from the side in shock and anger. She had been controlled by the woman early on. Among the people she brought, there were 2 formation masters who suppressed her until she could not use her ability. The monsters wreaked havoc in the village, killing the ancients who were originally in the village. The torches began to burn, and the flames burned the entire sky. The village was filled with the screams of humans. All of this had happened in the past. Everyone in the village was killed. Their mournful cries resounded through the sky. Even Mo Jiang and you had their eyes wide open. They didn't dare to look directly at the tragic scene in front of them. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.